Looking good, feeling good, and making a world of difference, one bottle at a time. Care for your hair and the planet with Elvive from L'Oréal Paris. All our shampoo and conditioner bottles are now made from 100% recycled and recyclable plastic, except the caps, which we're still working on. Together, we can save 5,000 tons of virgin plastic a year. For more information, see l'oreal-paris.co.uk/Elvive Recycle.
At Ring, we reinvented the doorbell. And now we're changing the way you look at whole home protection with Ring security cameras.
Wait, Ring does cameras too?
That's right. And they're so versatile, you can put them inside or outside, wherever you need them most.
Handy.
Ring cameras let you see, hear, and speak to anyone inside or outside your home. And you can control them all from the Ring app to keep you and your family connected and protected.
Now that is smart.
Ring. Smart security made simple. Learn more at ring.com.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show on the PA UK network. I'm your host Paul Rook, and as always we are joined in the studio by the stupendous double duo, paranormal duo, Kerry and Richard. Hello guys.
Hello, we're back. We're still stupendous, Richard. Woohoo!
Yeah, I'll leave you that title.
We've not ascended to an even greater level yet.
No.
I don't think there's been a word invented to describe us yet, Kerry.
No, that's it, totally. Yeah. Yeah. So this week you made me get out all the boxes again for this show. What are in these boxes that you've asked me to shift?
Well, we're looking at prophecy, boxes with prophecy attached to them or linked to them, or prophetic boxes.
A prophetic box, I like that.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say I've got a few pathetic boxes.
My boxes have got mainly shoes and things in them at the moment. But
there is a human fascination with boxes, isn't there? Like, we either metaphorically put something in a box, or we have a box for bits. You know, it's, I don't know, the wire box or the screw box, and I don't know many men that haven't actually got just like a box purely for screws, the old rusty crappy screws that they're never going to use.
I think in every kitchen there's a man drawer in it, and everything gets put in a man drawer.
Well, yeah, I suppose a drawer classed as a box, but thinking about, there's even the sort of there's thinking outside the box as well. You've got to think about that as well.
Yeah, I do that quite a lot.
We do use boxes a lot in our sort of metaphors and stuff like that. So,
and men even go one step. Sorry.
A box hasn't been invented yet to contain my thoughts.
Well, a man even goes further, because he doesn't just have like a little box. He'll go for a shed, which is like a big box in the garden.
Richard likes a shed.
Yes, I like a shed, yes. You can't beat a nice shed.
We were looking at sheds on Saturday, funnily enough.
That's true, yeah. Nice sheds as well.
They were very nice sheds. But there is this thing about boxes, and it has also been said by psychologists that men think in the form of boxes, and the boxes won't interlink. So the wife is in one box, the kids are in another box, their job is in another box, their car is in another box, and if they're dealing with a car, they're not thinking about anything else. Whereas women think completely differently. We screw it all up in one big ball, it's all interconnected, and it all impacts on each other, and it all becomes... Yeah. And this is why women overthink things a lot more than men do.
Really?
Apparently so. Apparently so.
Well, yeah, that's why they're so complicated. Men know what they want to do, get on with it, and it's done then, isn't it?
You put things in a box, yeah. I mean, boxes are good. I'm liking this subject, boxes. Already.
It's like when women go shopping, isn't it? Or look, you remember that diagram on social medias, and it's like men shopping, and it's like in the doors, go to exactly what they want and come out.
Yeah.
Up, down the aisles, back on themselves, back to the back of the store, then up the front, and
we're all over the place. Yeah, squiggle.
Then they go then they go around about 10 other shops, and then they go back to the first shop they went in to pick up the first thing they looked at in the first shop they went in. What's all that about?
Exactly.
And there is only a deviant if the woman is with the man when he's shopping. I will say that. There is more squiggly when the man is with a woman shopping, but when he isn't, he is very one-track minded, and boxes become very apparent. And this is something that psychologically is very apparent when you look at the differences between the sexes. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about prophetic boxes that have been very famed for having a prophecy inside them or something esoterical that's important inside a box. So that's where we're going with today. So before we delve into a box, let's just talk about prophecy in general. Now, this is the art of prediction of future events. Now, there's been some very, very famous prophets in the past. Nostradamus is always quoted, although if you read any of these prophets, these prophecies he's made, then to be fair, well done for working them out if they relate to that, because they are a bit...
It's a bit one prophecy fits all, isn't it? with Nostradamus, I mean... Fits all eventualities.
And he's not the only one. I mean, even with COVID recently, there was right at the beginning, this was prophesized by this person in this book, and that famous author, whatever his name was supposed to have written a whole story about the whole situation, and it was released 10 years ago, so its prophecy was there, it was out there. And this art of being able to read the future and prophesize major events is not something that's uncommon. It's very common, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, last year, for example, we was bombarded with, it was the Sun newspaper, I think, primarily, and it was, at the weekend it's going to snow. And we had that every weekend till it actually snowed.
And then what they would have said is, we prophesied this.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It all came in prophecy.
That prophecy was amazing.
Ever since the start of the winter, well, you know.
Yeah.
I think
they went through that through the summer as well. You know. But...
Yeah, I think they did, you're right. I think, though, with the great prophets, I think what you have to look at is they're very tied religiously. So they always have a religious undertone to them. So it's always tied in with God, the universe, and everything kind of thing. And you find that the actual person who prophesied it has got a very deep religious belief system going on.
Yeah, I think prophecy is very connected with religion. I mean, you know, sort of like the Bible does prophesize a lot. So, yeah, it's sort of like the two do go together quite nicely. And it does tend to be people of a more religious type sort of bent who will tend to sort of be prophets or aspire to be prophets.
Now, I think one of the most famous boxes that I've come across, I say famous, I know about it, so it must be famous, right?
I didn't until you brought this up the other day, and I've been looking into it. Very interesting.
It is an incredibly interesting, and she is, the person we're about to talk about is actually an incredibly interesting character in her own right. Her name is Joanna Southcott. Now, she was a very famed prophet in her own right at the time. She was a prolific writer of prophecies, although when I actually was trying to find out other prophecies that she was supposed to have done, I couldn't really find it. There's loads of books. She's written loads and loads of books, everybody, about 65 of them.
I think one of her main prophecies was to not let Kerry Greenaway know anything about her books. That has come to pass.
That has come to pass.
Of the books.
Unless I bought the books, and I wasn't that interested that I wanted to buy the books, to be fair. Not 65 of them anyway. But I knew about her box, the Joanna Southcott box. Now, let's have a little look into Joanna herself. That might give us a little insight into her. So Joanna Southcott, she was born in 1750. Now, Richard, this particular time in history is quite relevant, I would say, in regards to how Joanna became who she became.
Yes, it certainly is. I mean, there's a lot of things with these sort of prophets, especially during historical times, and even today, they seem to be inspired by events which are going around them, sort of uncertain times, and particularly the mid to late 1700s and the early 1800s was just a time, and particularly here in the UK, it was sort of, you had the start of the French Revolution. So just across the channel, your closest neighbour, who we never have had very good relationships with, was starting to change. So there was a lot of sort of like suspicion and anxiety and anticipation of what was going to happen. And this would have led into the Napoleonic Wars and stuff like that. So there's a lot of biblical references in that. A lot of people thought that back at this time that they were actually going through the end times as prophesied in the Bible, with wars and rumours of wars, which at this time was actually going on.
But it also brings into people's, for an individual person on the street, as it were, it brings into a lot of uncertainty, doesn't it? And your own mortality becomes very prevalent. And actually, when you've got a great loss of people, there's always that want of closure. So you want to connect to the other side to make sure that they've got closure. So spiritualism and mediums and prophets become very attractive because you're hoping for that comfort and that closure on that situation of a lost loved one, or where your future's going to lie. Is it going to be okay? You want that reassurance, don't you? So this is why it becomes such a thing, and we saw this in the Victorian period as well, and after the World Wars we saw a resurgence in spiritualism, mainly because people are losing loved ones far, far away from home in tragic circumstances, and people need that comfort and that closure.
It seems that what they're trying to do is these sort of like prophets come around at these times of uncertain events like wars, like particularly the First World War and stuff. And it's like they're sort of trying to sort of take the hard times they're going through now and sort of trying to kick the can down the road a bit and sort of like put sort of we'll try and take this bad time and project it into the future to try and make the time we're going through now easier to understand and to deal with.
It's surprising, really, that with all the uncertainty and worry that people are going through now, right now...
Well, now is quite a good example of it.
Are we getting prophecies being predicted about the future? I've not heard of any. I've heard a lot of conspiracy theories, but that's not quite the same thing.
I think perhaps the modern day conspiracy theory has taken over from prophecy. I mean, if this had happened sort of 100 years ago, people would have perhaps been putting a religious spin on it with prophecy. But I think the sort of the 21st century version of prophecy is probably conspiracy theory.
Yeah, Paul?
See, I think with the conspiracy theories, though, isn't it like past tense? Things about what have happened in the past. If an event happens and people quite can't get their heads around it, they try to put it into logical context. Like, for example, the Twin Towers, when they got destroyed in the terrorist attack, it wasn't until afterwards that some of the conspiracy theories come out, when people would study the footage and they see the air blasts coming out from the side of the towers as they fell, and the only way people could logically explain that was if it was a controlled detonation. And then obviously that gave rise to the conspiracy theory that actually it was like a home attack as opposed to a foreign attack.
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's trying to make sense of what's going on, and conspiracy theory does come out of needing to understand the world and your environment within it.
But to say that they are prophecies of the modern day, I don't think it is, because it is past tense. It's not actually saying, well, in another 10 years' time, I don't know, the moon's going to fall out of the sky and destroy the planet.
I think that's booked in for September, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I think that's
might be
next month.
October. It might be October, that one. I think we've got the alien invasion first.
Yeah. No, I thought that was July, but that didn't quite happen, did it?
No, they postponed it because of COVID.
Ah, that's right. We've got the second wave in August, haven't we?
Yeah. September's the alien invasion now, and then we've got the moon falling in October.
Okay.
I'm not sure about November yet. There's still.
Oh, we'll have to wait.
That's what the Cobra meeting's about.
Snow in November, I heard.
Okay, snow. So it's the day after tomorrow, and then December we can have a month off because it's Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to have some good time in there, right?
Absolutely.
Or
Yeah.
try and have some good time. Not with your family, though, just by yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. With your face masks.
With your face. So anyway, Joanna, let's go back to Joanna Southcott, because
Yeah.
we've gone right down a different rabbit hole there. So Joanna Southcott, now, apart from all these prophecies that she did, she actually did a box. She made a box up. And it was a revelation in a future time of national crisis. But before we get into the box itself, let's have a look at Joanna herself, because she's a very, very, what's the word? Interesting character. I think we can go with, don't you?
Colourful, maybe.
Colourful. Yeah, that's a good word.
Colourful, yes, very much. A lady of her time, perhaps. Well, she seems to be a bit off the side for that, really. But anyway, carry on. Let's dig into it. Shall we?
Her actual birth date is actually a bit uncertain. They don't know the exact date of her birth, but everyone sort of kind of agrees on the 25th of April in 1750. But Joanna herself claims that just as when Jesus was born, angels rejoiced at my birth. Oh, they did that. They rejoiced when I was born too, funnily enough.
Oh, of course, yes.
As you know,
they did.
I think another word to describe would be sandwichless.
She was actually born on a farm in Telford, which is down in Devonshire, Ottery St Mary down in Devonshire, and she's just the daughter of a tenant farmer. So she's, not wealthy but not poor. They have to work hard for what they've got for a tenant farmer. It's sort of like you're not actually well off, but you're managing comfortably.
You have to work for a living, basically.
Yeah, but she's the fourth of 6 children, so she's quite a big family.
Well, not uncommon during the time.
No, that's right. Teddy wasn't invented, was it? So
They did tend to have big families. Yeah, they did tend to entertainment of some form, I suppose. They later moved to Gittisham,
yeah,
which is about, of course, near Exeter anyway. And she was raised in the Church of England and basically remained an Anglican. But she doesn't seem too set on that, because throughout her life she does sort of float around in other forms of religion and tradition. So she did sort of go over to the Methodists at one point.
Yes, this was like a growing organisation and during the time. But as the research sort of said, she did basically stay to her Anglican roots, which is quite sort of rare for a prophet, actually. Usually sort of prophets and stuff are usually more of a Catholic bent. But that's just me sort of musing there. But it's quite interesting, that in itself.
So she was brought up quite strictly in, the scriptures, and her father was very biblical himself. Do you know what I mean? They were a God-fearing family, everybody, God-fearing. And she did work. She was a worker in her younger years. She did farm labouring, servants. She was an upholsterer even. And throughout her writings, apparently, you can see this influence that comes through in her prophecies. Now, she did end up getting quite a big following. And I say quite a big following, you'll be shocked, because there's still a following for this lady.
Yes.
It's quite a thing still, apparently, for Joanna Southcott.
And a museum as well.
She's got a museum and everything, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But she started to experience voices and visions in around 1792, and basically this is where the prophecy starts kicking in, because it warned her of the war with France and food shortages. So these voices that she started to hear actually warns her of this. But I always question, around this sort of time when she first started getting these, I would like to know a little bit more about what influences were going on in her life at that time, for her to start having visions and hearing voices. Is it a psychotic episode that she's got? And regarding the influences of what's going on in the general popular, is it being prophetic, or is it just being foresighted, as in, I'm not being funny, I can sit here today and I can go, things ain't looking that great for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
There's going to be, I can sit here and go, there's going to be more outbreaks of COVID, there's going to be more kinds of lockdowns, there are going to be more restrictions put in place, because we need to keep it down. because of that, we could find ourselves having food shortages because obviously transportation is going to be curtailed like it had been. People are going to panic and maybe stockpile a little bit more than they have been doing, and particularly looking at things that are coming out of Australia at the moment. You know, when you start looking at it, am I being a prophecy there? No, I'm just being a little bit commonsensical about what's going to happen.
You're sort of taking the information you know and sort of like interpreting it the best you can.
So is that what she was doing, is my point? And if she was then going through a psychotic episode coupled with her belief system, I'm surmising, by the way, I'm assuming, I don't know this, but it's just I'm trying to look at it how...
Yeah, I can certainly see that. I mean, especially sort of like it sounds her form of religious upbringing was the fire and brimstone type, I should imagine it. It certainly does look very much like that. So, you know, and that would have coloured her outlook as well. So, you know, it would have, her sort of, she would have been a glass half empty instead of a glass half full type of person, I should imagine.
By the sounds of it, yeah. But I mean, what she prophesied did come true. And actually, she was actually quite clever as well, because when she got a prophecy from these voices and visions, she would write them down, seal them, and then send them to the clergy. I don't know what language I was trying to go for there.
It's speaking in tongues there, nearly.
So it's my visions and my voice is coming through. So she would send them off. So it's a sealed prophecy. I prophesise this, so I'm going to write this down, seal it, and then I'm going to send it to a notable person or the clergy.
Yeah.
So it's not interfered with, as it were. Mm-hmm. So then if it comes true, it validates me as a prophet.
Yes, this is the thing.
I was watching a magician show last night called Fool Us, and it was like a Penn and Teller show. And there was actually a mentalist on there, and he was doing pretty much exactly the same thing. You know, he got his prophecy, put it into an envelope, gave it to the host, and then got random people in the audience to shout out numbers, and that's what was in the envelope. Could it just be something like that, just on a longer scale?
I'm looking into sort of like prophecies and stuff. They are only ever valid if they happen, if they come to pass, aren't they?
Well, yeah.
Which is, you know, what purpose do they actually serve? That's got you thinking, isn't it?
What?
Well, yeah, you know, I could quite easily say, I could say, right, okay, my prophecy is man will walk on the moon, on Mars, even.
Yeah.
We will have a colony on Mars. It's going that way anyway.
Yeah.
With the space mission that's just come back to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
SpaceX, or whatever it's called.
I mean, I think we can safely say this will happen at some point.
So, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, you could say that about any of the planets. You know, one day we might make Jupiter. It's going to happen.
So if you wrote that down and then sealed it and sent it to a notable person, and then, I don't know, if you'd put a date on it of when it would happen, then that becomes a prophecy rather than a guess. And this is the thing. Most of her prophecies did actually seem to come true. I mean, she made prophecies about harvests. She correctly predicted the death of the bishop, I can't speak today, the Bishop of Exeter. And that was an unexpected death. And she actually correctly predicted that. He's going to die soon, I assume. I don't know whether she gave a date or not. But it was, like, so say if I said to you, Paul, I said, I predict that you're going to die in the next 2 years. That's highly unlikely because you're not going to. I'm just putting that out there. But, well, as he does, and everyone go, God, she prophesied that. No. The chances are you're not, because you're a fit, healthy young man. Yeah?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So if you did die, it would kind of be unexpected. But people would go,
I can't
hang on.
die anyway, because I've got shows.
Exactly. This is true. You're not allowed to. But I've prophesied that now, haven't I? Because I've turned around and said that's gonna happen in the next 2 years. I know it's not, babe, so don't panic. I'm not. I was just using it as an example.
Don't worry, Paul. If you do, I will burn her as a witch.
Okay, that's fine.
And on that note, we just got hung, not burnt. Just saying.
Not in Scotland, though, you know.
Yeah, well, we're not
Anyway.
in Scotland. I'm in Canvey Island. In fact, they don't kill witches on Ireland. They celebrate them. Oh, trying to preserve my own life there, you hear.
Well, she's got the cackle, hasn't she? That's what it is.
Well, yeah. It's a dead giveaway.
It is. And she's got the nose.
Oi, cheeky monkey.
Yeah, that war. Yeah. You have to
No,
watch out
we'll
for that.
put it on her. No,
I'm going to have to put a photo out now to prove to her we have not got a horsey nose. Anyway.
And the long chin.
Come on, Paul, calm down.
Going to slap them
And
both
she's
when we
got
finally get in the studio. Right, so anyway, so she was actually quite good at her prophecies. She did predict things accurately. And she got quite a bit of a following on this. But some did dispute her accuracy, as apparently her handwriting was very difficult to decipher. So although she's written it down, they had to sort of get her to read it.
Yeah.
So they were. So she was,
Which
which is quite humorous, really, isn't it?
well, yes. I mean, she probably would have made a good doctor by the sounds of it, because her handwriting was apparently meant to be quite illegible.
Exactly. And so what they said, that when she was actually reading them out aloud, she was actually adapting their context to the contents to agree with the facts of what actually happened. So there is that thing. But I will say this: if she was a mediumistic prophet, if she was getting messages from a higher power, whatever that higher power would be, and she was doing something called automatic writing. I don't know if anybody's out there has seen somebody who's done automatic writing. It's very rarely nice and neat. It is very scrawly and generally very hard to read.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all tried that experiment, haven't we?
Yeah, I can do automatic handwriting.
And
I find
how
it
is
quite
the handwriting?
It can be quite jumbled up, almost like I don't know, when you was at school and the teacher goes like, that's just like a spider's crawled all over your work. The pen, you know, that's sort of how it looks. Yeah.
Well, you didn't used to submit your automatic writing as homework, did you, Paul?
I did, yeah. I never wrote it myself. It was Spirit, like a ghostwriter.
Yeah, Einstein.
literally.
I was channeling Einstein when I did my science homework, everybody.
Exactly.
I've never done automatic writing myself, but I know you two have sort of like done it before, and I've seen videos of people sort of do it, and it is sort of
you can have a go when we go to Kelvin and Hatch.
Oh, okay.
Next time. We are actually preparing that as an experiment for the night.
Cool.
Ooh,
Yeah.
cool.
It is really interesting.
It is, absolutely. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Watch this space, guys.
Yeah.
So that is something I would say, is if it wasn't a form of automatic handwriting that she was doing, or channeling that she was doing to do her prophecies, that could be why her handwriting was so bad.
Yeah.
In these.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So when she's reading them, she knows what it says because she channeled that. Do you know what I mean? Which sounds a bit weird, but you kind of get, you know. And but then that's a criticism, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Only she knows what's in there properly, so she can change the facts to change the words to fit the facts, and nobody would really know because they can't read her handwriting.
Well, yeah, this seems to be quite a common trait in all sort of prophecies. As you know, we spoke about like Nostradamus. I mean, they can be quite sort of ambiguous, can't they? You know, there's sort of like there's a lot of room for interpretation, you know, which sort of takes the edge off a lot. I mean, you don't sort of come across many, from as far as I'm aware, that are sort of word for word accurate. There's still sort of, it still seems to demand a level of interpretation.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Especially with dreams. Dream prophecies.
Yeah. So between 1792 and 1814, Southcott actually produced 65 pamphlets. Now these were really, really popular in the Anglican clergy, I want to say clergy on that. Clergy. Yeah, they were really popular. She had, as I say, she had a really big following in what she was writing and her prophecies and how she would, talk about things and stuff like that. And even William Blake's friend, William Sharp, was very attracted to her ideas. So she wasn't just hitting the normal everyday people. She's hitting high-ranking people, the upper, I don't know, the upper middle class, I suppose you'd call it.
Well, yeah, especially acquaintances of William Blake and stuff like that, who were quite visionary people, because wasn't it Blake that wrote Jerusalem, wasn't it? And sort of it, and that is very much a product of its time, a forward sort of visionary view of England, sort of. So it is quite interesting. So there was certainly a lot of people were interested in this in general, not so much sort of like they would follow her. There would be a general undercurrent within society about this.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, in the 1790s, and this gives you a glimpse into the mindset, is all I can say. Southcott actually identified herself as the woman clothed with the sun.
Right.
That's how she described herself. She identified herself as a woman clothed with the sun. Apparently that was foretold in the Revelation of St. John. This woman clothed in the sun. So she's now aligning herself with prophetic figures in the Bible, in teaching. She's now aligning her physical self almost as a female Jesus kind of character. I'm foretold in the Bible. So I am this amazing prophet-y person that is absolutely good. Now, back in the day, you could buy something called a seal, right? And it would have like a verse on it, and what you would do is you would bury them with the dead. So if you wanted to send a prayer or help the dead pass over, all those sort of things, you could buy one of these seals, and she would write her own little verse on it, a little circle, signed by the believer at the top and then by Joanna herself at the bottom. And she would charge 12 shillings 1 guinea for one of these to be buried with a dead person. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That is
extortion, yeah. I haven't quite done the calculation of what that is worth today, but that is quite a lot of money.
For a seal that's going to be buried.
Yeah, but again, there's precedents in that. Sort of like the Catholics would used to sell indulgences, pray for people on your behalf. So there, again, and there is a precedent in actually sort of religious people withdrawing on religious sort of thought would actually sort of on your behalf, you can pay them a small fee and they'll do the legwork for you.
And that's how she was viewed. Of how amazing it would be to get this prophetess to do buy something from the prophetess that I can put with my dead person, and it's going to help their salvation come Judgment Day.
It's like you're purchasing a relic from them, aren't you? Something physical that is connected to that person, the prophetess in this case.
Exactly. That's actually going to be an idea.
It's
for
like
a good
in the
show.
medieval period.
Relics.
It's like in the medieval period, but you could get like relics, or you can sell relics from get them from the church, and they do like Jesus' figures in packs of 18 and things.
Yeah,
give them out to the parishioners.
As Kerry said, I think that is a good show.
Yeah, I think we need to do a show on relics in themselves, right? So she's earning a lot of money as well because oh dear, apparently. By 1807, she had issued about 14,000 seals. If you do the maths on that, that's a heck of a lot of money. Bearing in mind, this is from 1802 to 1807.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money in 5 years. 12 shillings 1 guinea, and she sold 14,000 of them. She's an entrepreneur, everybody.
She is.
She's definitely buying into that belief system.
She obviously had a good PR behind her, but as you sort of pointed out earlier, she obviously had a good couple of sort of patrons behind her, William Blake and stuff. So that would have lifted her profile. So yeah, good publicity there for her.
Very much so. I mean, by this time, she's got a huge following. She must have to sell 14,000, quite frankly. And she went to London in 1802. She was 52 by now, settled there permanently in 1807. Now, by now, you've not just got, like, followers. You've got congregations called the Southcotians that were established. And they met in what was known as the Millennium Chapels. And they were based in London, the north and the west of England.
Okay.
So you've got almost like a sub. She's not set up like a religion in her own right, but these are just followers. It's a theology that people are following.
Yes, I can sort of get. Yeah, they're sort of like meeting places for people that share a common interest in, obviously, her, and I can see them going, discussing and sort of meditating perhaps, and just having basic sort of prayers and things like that around her work, I suppose.
Yeah, now it did actually appeal very strongly to women. They were the majority of her followers, and she was very much a feminist in regards to seeing the importance of women's role changing and becoming a key part in bringing about change in the millennium. Okay, she believed that the fall was wrongly attributed to a woman in Genesis 3, but also promised that a woman would be central to humanity's redemption. So it's all very feminine. It's very the power, it is. It's almost like the start of feminism, isn't it? We can bring you down, we can raise you up.
Which is quite sort of brave for her to do at the time. I mean, she must have got a lot of criticism for that. I mean, we've spoke about her sort of followers, but it'd be interesting to find out if she had any detractors at the time, which I'm sure she must have done.
Oh, I'm sure she did. But to be fair, from what I was looking into, she had her people that were going, well, prophecies, there's a criticism around that. But in regard to her theology, it doesn't seem to be, whether or not they just didn't see her as that big a threat, it was seen as almost like a club.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Oh, just women in their ways, let them get on with it, kind of thing.
Go and have a good natter.
Yeah, she's following the Anglican faith, really, so she's quoting the Bible. She's not wrong in what she's quoting because it's in the scriptures, so can't really argue with her. Let her get on with it. I don't know whether it was more that, but her sense of self-importance in regards to this role actually became a bit more than just somebody talking about theology. She was actually a virgin. She hadn't actually soiled herself by man.
Oh, that's nice. I don't know quite what to say about that.
I thought I worded that beautifully. But she announced that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The worst bit about... I said the worst bit. I think the most unbelievable part about this is she was 64 when she said this.
I think it's...
Yeah.
It seems she's developing throughout her sort of, whether you call it a ministry or not, or her sort of career as a prophetess, She seems to be trying to take more of the stuff from the Bible and put it on herself. She's actually trying to physically reenact certain sort of aspects of the Bible.
Well, she's already said that her coming was foretold in Revelation or John, whatever, John the Messiah part. Now she's now the destined Eve. You know what I mean? Who's pregnant with Shiloh, which is actually a figure that's in Genesis. Which basically means the Messiah. Now, we looked into Revelations, and my God, Revelations itself deals with the woman, the child, and the dragon. And basically, a woman.
It makes you wonder what's next. Is she going to wet her bed and then just claim she's Noah as well?
So in Revelations, it basically details that a woman will give an immaculate conceived birth to a child, but the dragon will be standing there waiting to eat the child. the child himself will be the second coming of Christ.
Mm.
That's basically what we gleaned from the...
So we was discussing this the other night, wasn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think, you know, the dragon could just be a metaphor for maybe Herod, as we was discussing Jesus when he was born. Obviously, the dragon could be like an evil entity, which at the time would have been King Herod or the Roman Empire, or, you know. So what was going on in the 1750s that could have represented that dragon?
Yeah.
It's not so much the actual character, it's the evil that underlies. So it's the evil that's driving the person's actions to do that. So it wasn't Herod, wasn't a nasty, horrible person. It was Satan driving him to do those actions.
Yeah, of course it was.
Of course it was. And, you know, so back in then. So Revelation sort of like recaps of what's already happened and then details what's going to happen in the future. And Shiloh becomes that future part. So it's Revelations is almost like, from my understanding, everybody, I'm not a religious expert, so I'll probably be shot down in flames by a religious expert or my layman terming it for people. But from what I understand of Revelations, it sort of recaps and then goes on to say that this is going to happen again in the future. And Southcott is basically saying she's going to be the woman that carries Shiloh, the child, in Revelations. But she's 64 years of age, just putting that out there. So she's gone through the menopause. She is a virgin. So if she was pregnant, be the Immaculate Conception. So, you know, who knows? She was examined by 9 doctors. 6 of those believed her to be pregnant. They was really crap doctors, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know quite what an examination would entail back then to sort of see if a woman was pregnant, but yeah, I mean, but, you know, were these doctors influenced by her, and were they followers of her or something? You know, it's quite possible.
Who knows? But if you've got any integrity as a doctor and you've been asked to examine a woman to see if she's pregnant or not for the Immaculate Conception, you don't really want to lie, because time will out on that one.
Time will out, yes. About 9 months usually, isn't it?
Usually. Yeah, that's the usual time. But November, she was well overdue. By November, when she was due to have the baby, no baby. She actually got married at this time.
We're still waiting, aren't we?
Yeah, we're still waiting for this baby. She actually got married.
That's one way overdue date, isn't it? You would have thought they'd induce it by now.
You think?
Yeah.
She actually got married to John Smith, and he saw his role as the new Joseph.
Oh, right.
So she was, Mary, and he was Joseph. And they were together, they were having the Immaculate Conceived baby Jesus.
Did he have his Technicolor dream coat?
He didn't have that, but he was high standing.
No, he's not Joseph then, is he?
Yeah.
He was quite high standing. He was actually a former steward to the Earl of Darnley and a page to the Prince Regent, who was actually George the Fourth.
Yes, he would the person that became George IV, yeah.
But he didn't
so if he was sort of hanging around with the Prince Regent at the time, one of his sort of drinking buddies, he must have had a good time as well. So he probably was trying to repent.
Or it was one of those, I know, I dare you.
I dare you, go on. Marry her.
Marry her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You'll be known as the new Joseph.
Yeah.
Who knows?
They'll laugh, won't it?
Right,
It'll be something to tell me mates down the pub.
Well, there is that, right? But this whole pregnancy, this is where she went from, kind of respected for her views and everything to ridicule.
I think it is quite a trait with him. They start off with well intentions and their stuff is interesting, and then there's almost a sort of thing that comes along. They start believing their own hype, and then they really overcook it towards the end.
We see this with mediums, though. They're really good. They get a really good, reputation, and then all of a sudden they seem to go too far.
Yeah, there's always that video crops up, doesn't it? When. Yeah.
Mary loves Dick is where we're going with that, everybody.
Yeah.
Hashtag most haunted Dick Turpin.
Yeah.
Bless him. Rest in peace, we can say on that one.
A classic sort of a classic sort of thing of bowing to pressures of modern times. She was obviously, a lot of people were expecting more and more, and she was obviously sort of going along with them. And what more can you sort of do than announce that you are with child with the Messiah?
It's a risky business. I'm not being
He's
funny.
not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
It's a very risky business, the old pregnancy thing. It's not something you should mess with, particularly in regards to the second coming of Christ. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
Her health did decline in the late 1840s, and she actually died on the 27th of December. But I think this is tragically funny. Her followers thought she was in a trance, not dead.
You know, to get
That's because they're not doctors.
So they kept her body warm for 4 days with hot water bottles, thinking that she was in a trance getting ready to give birth to Shiloh, to this second coming. And then they suddenly realised actually that...
That smells a bit fresh in here.
she is actually dead.
Yeah.
And they actually autopsied her. I don't know if that's the right terminology there.
Yeah.
They autopsied her.
Post-mortem autopsy,
Yeah, on the 31st of December. In the presence of some of her followers and sympathisers. So, you know, there was like, okay, you can do that, but we are going to, like, oversee this. And
Well, she wasn't dead then. She's dead and then.
She certainly was dead by the time they finished autopsying her. There was no evidence of a pregnancy.
Yeah.
So then you've got that monk, haven't you, that's they encased in gold or something, and they claim that he's still alive.
Oh, the Tibetan monk?
Yeah, just in meditation.
Yeah, haven't they done recordings and stuff of him, though? And they've recorded like a...
X-rays and all sorts.
Yeah. But he's transcended his physical. So he's still there, but he's transcended the physical. The physical doesn't matter anymore. And that must be a real high state of consciousness. No, because there must be something that makes them think he's alive.
Yeah, but isn't that what happens when someone dies? Isn't that your soul leaves your body and then goes up or transcends to another higher, whatever you want to call it, level, dimension, heaven?
But he hasn't left the physical plane. He's just put himself into that higher state of consciousness in the physical plane. He's not left the physical plane.
No, but then that's what we do. Our
we don't.
Our souls go
Not
off
the last
and our
time.
physical body's left.
Huh?
That's what we put in the coffin.
No. There's a separation at that point. He hasn't separated. He's still in the physical. He's still part of himself, even though his body is...
You don't know that.
There must be something that's telling them that he's still alive, his body is still alive, even though it's all mummified and
the disbelief that they don't want to let him go.
Not necessarily. There must be... I'm sure scientists looked at it and there was some form of... I can't actually remember what it was, but there was something that made them think he was still alive. Scientifically, medically.
Okay.
That's interesting. I've never actually heard of this, but I have heard of, well, you know, we are digressing a bit, but I have heard of, you know, sort of some Tibetan monks do have quite the art of deep trance and meditation, because they can go out into the Himalayas sort of like virtually with nothing on and meditate all night and sort of come back in the morning all pretty much intact still, you know. So they are quite apt at doing this, but this sort of story you two are talking about, I'm not particularly heard of, so certainly be something to look into.
Yeah, it is, because as I say, I know a little, but I don't know enough to argue the point with Paul on this one, because I'm the same as you. If it's 400, 500 years old, he's dead, he's gone. But there must be something there that makes them say he's still alive.
Don't argue with me, just
just agree with you.
Yeah, just agree with you, yeah.
Yes, sir. No, sir. 3 bags full, sir.
do right as well. I'll get on with it.
But in regards to this, there was actually a 16th century prophecy that said that an old woman shall conceive and bear a conqueror, but he shall not stay with you. So they're saying that she was the old woman that conceived, and Shiloh was there, but he's gone now. How convenient is what I would say.
Yes, again, these sort of things always crop up in prophecies. You know, you get the believers, and they will always tend to sort of twist it and sort of stuff and sort of say, you know, sort of quickly go back to the history books and thought, well, it's not quite what we thought. Let's go back to the history books and they'll sort of study and think, we've found the right sort of get-out clause here.
Or it's another accurate prophecy, and that's exactly what happened. Who knows, right? Now, crowds were gathering for Joanna's body, so they transported her to the undertakers at midnight and actually buried her under a false name in St John's Wood's burial ground on the 1st of January in 1815.
Right.
So if you want to go and find her, that's where she was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's get into the box, right?
The box.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? Because we have this box that she sealed a prophecy
I
that should
reckon-
only be opened in times of great national crisis, right?
I know what was in the box.
What's in the box?
Marbles.
Marvels.
That's where she
Ventriloquist
kept the
dummy,
marbles,
usually.
but she's lost a few.
Now, she had this box of prophecies that she, the problem was when she died, her followers kind of splintered. Her movement sort of fell through, so it all splintered. So the custody of the box it's a bit murky, is all I can say, because we don't actually know if the box that we're actually going to talk about is the original box, is the box of prophecy. When you find out what's in the box, you'll find out why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
There is talk that there were several boxes, not just the one, and that the one that they opened obviously wasn't the one, which can make sense. And because it passed through various hands, and because there was war raging in Europe and everything, it becomes a bit murky. We don't know. There could still be the Joanna Southcott box of prophecy that hasn't been opened. We don't know. But in 1914, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Randall Davidson, was actually lobbied to open the box. He declined.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the box was then presented to the Panacea Society in 1957 and basically looked after the box. That society was dissolved in 2012 and it remained in a secret location. Okay? Now, this is where it becomes interesting because we then jump to cyclical research.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, so Harry Price gets his hands... Well, I say he gets his hands on the box. He gets approached and says, I have a box. It's the Joanna Southcott box. Would you be interested in opening it? And,
Well, Harry, you should imagine, like, hell yeah.
over the last few weeks, when we've been looking at various bits and bobs of Harry Price, we know he's a bit of a media hungry. He wants fame and fortune. She was a big character in her own right. This creates quite a stir.
Yeah.
He gets sent a letter. It's got a lot of details in there saying that this is basically the box, right? Now, he goes, hell yeah, give me the box. But to be fair, Harry is you've got to like a bit of Harry for this. He gets the box. He meticulously writes down everything about the outside of the box, right?
Yep.
Oh yeah, he's very thorough.
He's very, very thorough. He even x-rays the box to see what's inside the box. There are conditions that are said to, be fulfilled whilst opening the box. He tries to fulfil those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Something like, I don't know, one of each diocese of bishops needs to be present when opening the box. So he writes to all of the bishops and says, I'm going to open the box. Do you want to come? Do you want to come? 24,
Party at my
24.
place.
Yeah, party at my place. We're going to open the box. Do you fancy it? There'll be brandy and nibbles. And but no, pretty much they all turned it down. They weren't that interested. And, basically he got on with it. And I think there was one bishop there, the Bishop of Grantham was there when he opened the box. But before he opened it, he actually took an x-ray. Now, we have a picture of the x-ray.
Yeah. I will post that up on the page, so on the Facebook page, so if people want to go and have a look at it. It is actually quite interesting, isn't it? It's not what you
expect.
It's not what you expect, no.
If I was a box of prophecy and this amazing woman and the whole history surrounding the woman, I've got this big letter saying that this box has passed to this person, that person. It's been held, in Wales by this person for all these years. It is the Joanna Southcott Book of Prophecies. There are conditions that you've got to open it under, 24 bishops, time of national crisis.
It was full of old rubbish.
It wasn't her adult toys, was it?
Her adult toys? No. Well,
no,
if they were, it's a little bit weird. That's all I can say. When you look at the X-ray, which, say, if you go over to the Facebook page, then you'll be able to take a look at the X-ray itself. You can see why we're mocking this. This is not what I would expect prophecies. I would expect a scroll or a sheath of letters, or I would expect maybe even a bound booklet or, something. But there's something lacy, something that looks like a gun, something that looks like a button and pins in there. And the X-ray is obviously not what you would expect.
Well, the obviously pins at the corners, I think they are the sort of like the nails holding the box together. But in the centre, there's definitely some form of firearm in there, a short firearm, only a bit of it with no stock. There's some gauzy bags which possibly could contain pennies or some form of money, but that's just me.
I think the firearm was for non-believers.
And there's like a sachet in there as well, some sort of bag, a bag, and as you say, some odd-looking sort of pins. I think that's what you were talking about, and just a few buttons.
This is what the X-ray shows. Now, before they opened the box, Harry also did another experiment with psychic mediums. He got them to psychometrise the box. Basically, you put your hands on, tell me what you think is inside the box. He used various mediums for this, but they weren't accurate. There was no accuracy there whatsoever. Okay, the box itself did actually contain a few books and papers, dice, a lottery ticket, a nightcap, earrings, a purse, an old horse pistol. Nothing that would save England in its time of greatest need. Unless the horse pistol,
Unless there was a stampeding horse you needed to dispatch rather quickly.
So, of course, the South Coatians, the remaining South Coatians, who there's still quite a few of them out there, said that's not the box.
Of course not.
No.
They said that it's not the right size, that we have a box. We've got the genuine, we are in custody of the genuine box and have been since 1957, and we are not going to let you anywhere near the box, and it's not going to get opened. We're not going to let you do any experiments on it. We're not going to let you X-ray it. We will adhere to the conditions for its opening. Until that time comes, this box is kept in a safe and secure location, but it's within the Bedford area, everybody, just so you know, apparently, allegedly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, that leaves us with a conundrum then, doesn't it? Because other people say that it was the true box.
We'll just have to wait for the second coming of Christ.
Well, whatever conditions need to be met, and we'll have to sort of go to Bedford, I suppose, and just hang around there until they open the box.
Ransack Bedford.
Well, there is a museum there, and we will be going there for a bit of a field trip. But,
we're going to go and have a look, because she is a very interesting character in her own right. Now, there is also talk that the British Museum has the original box, the true box, the one true box, and it was put for safekeeping at the British Museum. They also say that it's a...
Already have a podcast? It's time to join Spreaker's monetization program, the easiest way to profit from your passion starting on day one. You decide which episodes and exactly where you want the ads to be inserted, and Spreaker takes care of the rest. If you're not on Spreaker, it's easy to import your podcast in just a few clicks, and then you can monetize your older episodes too. For one free month on a Pro account, visit Spreaker.com/monetize. That's SPREAKER.com/monetize to join and start making money today.
Allegedly been opened, and the papers were removed to the British Library, and that all the contents are actually stored in the basement. However, the curator that works there has got no knowledge of it. Other people have claimed that the true box was opened in Carlisle in the 1920s, that Shiloh has already returned. Where is he? And he's actually occupying the body of Prince William. Good old Prince William.
But there you go.
I mean, I think if someone did turn around and go, right, I'm here, I'm the second Christ, you've got to worship me, do as you're told, or else I'll get my dad down. You know, they're just going to put him inside. They'd lock him in the loony bin.
Yeah. But strange times, babes. Strange times. That's all I can say.
Strange times, yeah.
So
Belief's
if
a
I
strong
was him,
thing.
I'd stay where I was for now. Because we're obviously not ready.
Obviously we're not. Well, Harry Price himself speculated that several boxes may well have existed. The one he opened, genuine or not, has disappeared. And on that bombshell, we're going to take a quick break.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK Radio Network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
Okay, so before the break, we talked about the Joanna Southcott box and the prophecies that it was supposed to contain, which kind of didn't back it up, whether it was the real box, whether there's still a box to be opened, whether or not it's been opened. We don't know is the answer to that question. But this isn't the only box of religious prophecy or warning that's out there in regards to religion. There's a very, very famous, super famous box. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom comes to mind with this one. It's the quest for the Ark of the Covenant, the most famous box.
I need to correct you there. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, sorry.
Get your movies right, me dear.
Oh, sorry, I defer to the master again. Now, we're not going to go into the massive history of the Ark of the Covenant because it is long and convoluted and very religious, and we don't really know it, to be fair.
To be fair, yeah.
To be fair.
Not yet, but we could do that on a later show.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting.
It is incredibly interesting.
Itself.
Yeah, incredibly interesting. And it is very detailed in the Bible as to how the box get made, and replicas have been made of this box, the Ark itself. And it is one of those, isn't it? The Ark of the Covenant. Did it exist? Didn't exist? It's in the Bible. It's supposed to have been built to contain the 10 commandments, which, as we also found out, there's a hell of a lot more than 10.
Yes, that's 613, wasn't it? I think we said.
Yeah, and that was a bit long-winded, that particular conversation.
Yeah.
And actually, if you do look into the Ark of the Covenant in regards to biblical references, it is actually quite a scary box, I will say, on this one. It is. Yeah. It's been linked to a lot of the Old Testament miracles. It's supposed to have cleared impediments, poisoned animals from the path of the Israelites during the Exodus. Yeah. It is supposed to have wiped out people that have looked at it. Nobody can put their eyes on it. Solomon came a cropper with it. Hundreds of things. The Israelites actually besieged Jericho. They carried the ark around the city for a week, blowing trumpets as they went, and then the walls fell down. That's how come the walls of Jericho fell down. You know, so the Ark of the Covenant of the Ark of the Covenant. God, I don't even know what it is now. I've got it all muddled
I think
up
your
in my
teeth
head.
must be in it still.
I think I may need to go to the dentist, everybody, and get a new set. Is what I'm saying. It is absolutely. It's got a wealth of historical and mythological, folklore about this box in its own right. I mean, God, I think it is hard to pin that one down. They say it is in the St. Mary of Zion's Cathedral in Axum in
In
Ethiopia.
yeah, there is a sort of like a legend and pertaining to that, and yeah, because the last reference of the Ark of the Covenant's actually when the Babylonians conquered the Israelites in 586 BC, and that is the last actual written reference of the Ark of the Covenant being in the temple, and from then on, it disappears, and everything from then on that has been purported about the Ark of the Covenant is just pure speculation, whether it be, a lot of people have a Templar connection and all that, It's been one of these all-time quests for the holy relic, It is the relic of relics.
Along with the Grail.
Along with the Grail, yes. But,
yes.
And the Knights Templar always do seem to get muddled in with that, don't they? They do seem to go hand in hand with those two particular relics and the Knights Templar. They do seem to do. It does seem to come up. I mean, even when we looked at the Rennes de la Chateau,
yes,
we talked about that before on a show, which is another show that we've got planned for the future because that's a fascinating tale all in itself. When you look at that, you've got tales of. He found the Ark of the. Did he find the Ark of the Covenant? Was it a hidden Templar treasure that he found there that gave him that wealth that he was supposed to have? But nowadays, it is kind of assumed that it is in the St Mary of Zion Cathedral. Now, when we say cathedral, don't imagine St Paul's kind of cathedral. We're talking like a little, very humble little cathedral here. Only one person is allowed to see this relic. You can't go and see it. It's very, very. You can't even study it. People have tried to study it. You just can't get in. You can't even get into the doorway. It's like a courtyard within a courtyard within a courtyard, and you have to get through these, and you can't. You just can't.
It is.
I think the reason that the Knights Templar tend to get lumbered with all the relics and stuff is because obviously the Knights Templar were set up to protect the pilgrims on their religious journeys and things like that, and eventually that sort of merged into protecting artifacts. A lot of people would give the Knights Templar their gold to save keep and keep in their strongholds and things like that, and they essentially became the first ever bank where they were keeping people's valuables. And I think that's why a lot of churches would have gone to them and said, look, we've got the Ark of the Covenant, look after that for me. we don't want it falling into the Ottoman Empire's hands or anything,
Because when they first reached Jerusalem, they did headquarter on the Temple Mount. They were actually allocated what is believed to be where the Temple of Solomon stood, and there's a lot of sort of stories that they were excavating underneath, and they sort of come across. But again, these are all unsubstantiated stories. They don't know. They really don't. But it's a fascinating story in itself. It triggers the imagination, and I think that's why they're so enduring.
And I think this is the thing with these boxes. They trigger the imagination, don't they? Even looking at the Joanna Southcott box, it triggers the imagination. What is in the box? Do you know what I mean? Oh my God, there's been a whole TV program of that was absolutely massively what's inside a box. It does. It's like, I've got to know what's inside the box. And even if you did get into the temple in the Zion Cathedral and saw the box, you'd probably be quite underwhelmed by what is in there. In your head, you've got this great big box, and mainly because of the film Raiders of the Lost Ark. What? In all honesty, you've got that kind of. It's that powerful a box. If you cast eyes upon it, you'll be smoked down and die, and stuff like that. It's so iconic now in our heads, particularly when backed up with all the miracles we've read about the Ark of the Covenant. If we did get in there, we could be quite underwhelmed by it. Is that it?
And I think you would be. I actually watched a documentary where someone was sort of like traipsing through an Ethiopia on the trail of the alleged Ark of the Covenant. And all Ethiopian Christian churches do have representations of the Ark of the Covenant. which you can actually see. And as you say, they are very underwhelming. They're basically little square blocks of wood.
But the Ark itself is not destined to be that. I say, when people have done replicas of this, it is quite a large box.
Yes, when you go by the Bible, sort of, because there are quite specific instructions Moses is given on what to construct, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Isn't it acacia wood, and that has to be inlaid with gold, and then it's got cherubs on it, and it can only be carried by poles, but the poles have got to be acacia wood as well. And as say, inside the box is supposed to be the 10 tablets of commandment that Moses got given when he was on the Mount of Gethsemane, or wherever it was that he got given it. I don't know. I'm not very religious, as you can tell. Where, sorry?
Sinai.
Yeah, Sinai.
I think it was Judas on
Mount
that one,
Sinai.
wasn't he? I don't know. Anyway, all these mounts.
I don't know, but when I say but then when Bluto went to Mount Olive, Popeye beat him up.
And there were even tales that the Nazis were after these religious artifacts to give them a head in the war, World War II. But that's not true either. That's completely unfounded. And we found out that tended to be more propaganda than actual fact.
Yes.
You know, when we spoke to Andy Mercer about that a little while ago, he basically completely debunked the whole thing about the occult work that, you know, they were supposed to do. Don't get me wrong, they loved a bit of an artifact of everything. They were completely stealing and taking works of art and, you know, stockpiling those sort of things. But there is no basis in fact that they actually went after the Ark of the Covenant in specifically, or the Grail specifically, or any other religious artifact. Actually, I think they were just garnering stuff as they went, really, as they stole from people. But hey, that's a whole different story. So the Ark of the Covenant definitely fires that imagination of what's in the box, and we've seen that still relevant, even coming forward in time, with the Joanna Southcott box. Even now, it holds a fascination for people of the prophecies that are supposed to be in the box. In the paranormal world, there is another thing that is very fashionista at the moment, and that is something called a Dybbuk box.
The famous Dybbuk box.
The famous Dybbuk box. Now, once again,
me and Richard have actually seen one.
you have actually been in the presence of a Dybbuk box, haven't you?
You have.
I survived a night
And it's
sleeping
very
in a
underwhelming.
room with a Dybbuk box.
You did.
Yeah.
Now, this only came out from a box that was actually put on eBay for sale, basically saying, do not open this box. If you buy this box, do not open the box. And it came up with a whole history and a story, but that's really where the birth of Dybbuk boxes came from. Now, a Dybbuk is a Hebrew Jewish kind of entity, and they are revered. You know, they are a thing, a folklore thing, like the jinn are, that are good little things or bad little things. You know, you have to be respectful towards them, a bit like our fairies. Right, but apparently these have got trapped in the box. Weren't too happy about it, so you don't open it because it's going to, you know, bad stuff's going to befall you. Again, this actually flew, and this is where this whole story of Dybbuks came from. Now, you can find hundreds of Dybbuk boxes. You can buy a Dybbuk box. You can go on the dark web, the eBay, you can go on everywhere and buy yourself a Dybbuk box. They are in museums all over the place. I have seen many, many paranormal teams opening a Dybbuk box. There was even, not so long ago, the Higgy Pop Awards, there was a documentary on somebody who bought a Dybbuk box and opened it, and it was a video documentary of how it affected him as a person, and it was very Blair Witchy. It was done in like a documentary style of, I'm going to do this experiment, I'm going to buy it, and bloke seemed quite sane, and by the end of it he's smashing glasses on his forehead and disappearing and has a mental breakdown. And then,
classic found footage type sort of genre of film, isn't it?
It was very much so. And also the fact that the guy is now in the care of his parents, and they've released the footage as a warning for other people thinking Dybbuk boxes are bunkum. It was a piece of fiction. The guy who did it is a producer in his own right. Well done. Thoroughly enjoyed it, not going to lie.
Oh, yeah.
Quite
Good piece of work, good piece of fiction, You've got to give the guy credit for it.
very much so. If you believed it, good luck to you. Because the basic research on that showed it for what it was.
Yeah.
When we did the research on the background of that, we soon came across him in, what was it, IMDb?
Yeah, it is IMDb website. He's got his own page for, he's a producer and all sorts. I think he even does a bit of acting as well, like they all do.
Yeah. So, that's a big red flag right there. And then there's a ceiling fan that falls from the ceiling that doesn't have any wires attached to it, that the Dybbuk was supposed to have ripped from the ceiling, but there's no wires hanging down, and so it's a rigged thing. It brilliantly done. I'm going to say, if you want a good thrill factor watch, it's a good watch, right? But
it is. I've seen bits and pieces.
It is a fictional docu on paranormal activity. It's not real, everybody. Sorry to bring it. Spoiler alert. But it doesn't change the fact that in the paranormal field, we see teams opening these, and I'm going to air quote, Dybbuk boxes. And there is one in Zach Baggins' museum. There was a big opening of that, wasn't there? And, it's a big Halloween special of Zach's opening the Dybbuk box. And they had a Hebrew guy come in, a Jewish leader come in, and the editing of that was very bad because the Jewish leader was like, yeah, all right, mate, and okay, good luck. And editing on that was all taken on, wasn't it? And he came out afterwards and said a lot of what he said was not right, had been edited out and stuff like that. Anyway, it's controversy, I think is the expression I'm going for here, surrounds these boxes. Now, they're usually wooden carved boxes that have been sealed up and, with wax and seals, and they're all very witchy looking.
Oh yeah. I mean, and to make one, he must spend a fortune in candles, having to dribble all that wax over them, because the one I sort of spent the night with was just a wax-infested box, really, with a bit of sort of ribbon tied round it for effect.
Yeah, lovely, nice little artifact to look at.
Well, we all know that spirits are automatically stopped by a bit of ribbon.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but but they look the part. I must admit, they look gothic-y and sort of they look proppy, something you'll see in a horror movie, something like that. They do look the part.
They do. Now, inside a box, if you open one, you tend to find something like ashes and maybe a crystal and maybe a little charm written down. Maybe there's like a little feather or a piece of hair or something, so there's not a lot in them when you open them, but it's supposed to unleash all manners of hell and demonic entities that come out of it. But I think this actually links back into people's belief system in regard to poppets. And this is a UK thing. You guys overseas might know them more as voodoo dolls, or Voodoo Mary does these dolls, and it's a representation of a human, and you can do spells and stuff on them and affect a human being by these things. It goes into very much witchcraft, ritualistic magic, where you are doing something and concocting something which will have an effect. In regards to poppets, it would be aimed at a specific person, and this is still a thing that happens today. People have used Barbie dolls even as a representation to do their poppet making. So it still happens to this day. And we did Apping Wood a few years ago now, I think it was, and we found a tree and there was a poppet on the tree, wasn't there, Paul? Was you with me that night?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was candles
I
around.
don't know if I do remember. Yeah.
Yeah, there was candles around the base of the tree, and you could see that somebody had done a ritual working, and there was a poppet there. We didn't touch it, nothing to do with us, but it still happens today. And I think the Dybbuk box is a progression from that belief system. And also, old houses, particularly in the UK, would have bottles. You would do like a spell bottle for protection, and inside that you'd have nails and urine and hair and all sorts of weird and wonderful things were put into these
things
bottles.
Like fingernail clippings and all sorts, isn't it? They're sort of quite odd sort of things to put in, but they must have had a significance at the time. But they are quite common in old houses up until relatively recently.
Yeah, and when you think of old traditions of bringing If when you bring your Yule log in, you anoint it and you do certain things to it because you're paying homage to the Fae, basically, to the wood nymphs, and thanking them and keeping them warm in the winter. That's why you have a Christmas tree. You adorn it with beautiful things and put treats on the tree. That actually goes back to an older tradition of worshipping, and so they keep you safe, so they don't cause mischief for you. So you're showing respect for the Fae, kind of thing. So all of these old belief systems have evolved through, and I think the Dybbuk box nowadays in the paranormal field has just another branch of that witchy folklore evolution. And it's a box. It captures the imagination. What's inside the box? It's a nasty little limp thing that's going to come out and cause havoc. Woohoo! Let's open it. If there's a big red button on your desk, would you push it? A lot of people would. Just curiosity killed the cat, right?
Well, yeah, literally.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's have a look at that concept. Let's have a look at the concept of, can we trap, bind a spirit into a reciprocal, and in this case, a box?
Maybe with the power of belief. If you believe it works, it works.
Yeah, you're sort of like crossing over into the realm of magic, and magic is very sort of you have to believe in it wholeheartedly. There's no doubt in your mind. Then possibly, yes, you could, but that will be between the sort of like the individual. There is a belief system attached to it. I mean, there's no actual evidence that this actually happens, so it must all be down to belief system.
No, I don't know. If you've got Annabelle, it's in a glass case, and put something in a glass case, that's got to stop it, right?
That's because they believe it stops it.
Well,
Marley's agreeing with you, yeah. But does it really? Or
but then it didn't stop it. It didn't stop it in the movie, did it? Because the Annabelle doll come out of the case. It was found on the floor.
There's certainly a fascination if you put a barrier in between you and something. I mean, we visit museums, and you see these artifacts and stuff, and behind the glass case and stuff, and you'd love to handle them, but there's that, you can't. So, and that also adds the air of sort of mystery to it, or, the wanting to actually sort of go just that step further. And you're prevented from doing so.
Yeah. I do know that we all know that belief system plays a huge part in this, doesn't it? It does play an absolutely massive part in it. And the point of, can we bind an entity form, for argument's sake, into something, is again an old age folklore belief system. It's not new. That whole thing isn't new. When we was watching the talk by Martin Duffy regarding cauldrons, he was saying that they would have a little cauldron and actually make like a little nest in it. So I do apologise, everybody. The dog's having one. The dog's on one at the moment. We're talking. Come here.
I think Marley's calling you out. I think
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Right, now lay down. Now lay down.
He's like, rubbish.
There's a good doggy. So you make a little mini cauldron, a home for them.
Yeah.
So because you want them to do your bidding, so you want to make them so it's like a little nest for them, basically. So so there is this thought that you can get an entity to do your bidding. Whether or not you can bind them, there are spells called binding spells. So there is a belief system that you can do binding. But that's usually of an action. You want to stop somebody acting in a certain way, so you bind them to prevent them from acting in that way.
Yeah.
Rather than it being an entity. But we've talked about this time and time again regarding, can things hold an energy? So it's slightly different, isn't it? There's a subtle slip in perception there, where you've got a binding an entity to an object, or an object choosing to be linked to an object, or you're binding an action. So there is a distinct difference in that. Whatever way it comes down to, it does come down to your belief system and whether or not there are other entities. Ghosts, spirits, fae, Dybbuk, jinn, whatever you want to class them as.
See, I think, again, it's almost like protection as well. When you go in to do your protection, there's so many different ways of convincing your mind that you are protected from spirit, and it is the power of the mind. So it could just be an extension of that.
Yeah, it could be sort of like an extension of the amulet. Loads of people have amulets and stuff. I mean, the St. Christopher is probably the most people will wear that, and that is, and people will sort of choose that, to stay safe.
That's having
traveling.
faith and belief in that symbol.
Yeah.
So it's just an extension, I think.
But that's come out of saying, the saint actually being the patron saint of travel, hasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
So you wear a representation of, true. It's not sort of, that hasn't been imbued with his sort of spirit or whatever. It's a representation of him. But, sort of people that believe that you can have entities actually attached to objects, it's not too big of a leap to actually make that sort of like connection. It seems to be an evolution of the amulet. The representation, and then it's evolved into you can actually sort of place something specific on whatever object you wish it to be placed on.
I mean, this isn't just UK culture. You can look at any culture and they will have some form of totem or medicine bag. If you look at the Native Americans, look at Haitian voodooism. There are various forms of voodooism, like shamanism. There's loads of different branches and forms of that. All of them will have some form of totem which will imbue an energy signature that is generally for the positive side. If you've got a positive, you've got to accept that you can have a negative.
True, and it's interesting how these items and stuff, they hold both. They seem to be dual. You can either use them specifically to sort of like attach a good entity, or if you've got something you want to get rid of, you can also attach it to a object. So they seem to be dual purpose.
Let's look at the ethics of that then. Regardless, in regards to entity, regardless of what your belief system is in regard to an entity, as you as an individual, is it ethical that anybody should bind any entity to something? It's not, is it, when you think about it? Regardless, even if it exists or not.
They should. I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about a spirit of somebody that has passed. So they should have as much freedom as we have alive.
Yeah, I can understand that. They're sort of like looking at it from a modern sort of like perspective. You are technically imprisoning something, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're taking it out of its liberty, its natural environment, and placing it in or on something that, that is unnatural to them. That's if these entities exist, that is.
Yeah, we're going to go on an assumption that they do exist. So it's not actually ethical for a person to actually do that kind of work anyway, even if it is not a particularly good one. There are other you can banish, you can get rid of it. But rather than bind it, because when you're binding something, like you said, you're imprisoning it, you're capturing it, and usually for your own means, you want them to do something for your own benefit, your own intention.
Because with banishing, you're just putting distance, aren't you?
Yeah. You're saying go away.
Whereas sort of like imprisoning something, you're still keeping it relatively close at hand. It's still within your sphere, isn't it, of everyday life?
Yeah. And when we talk about spirits, when we come across them, and we are talking in the assumption belief system that they are real, I would say this, can't keep saying allegedly, so let's just look at it that they are there, right?
Okay.
So if you go into a haunted location and you move a spirit on, you're not moving them on into a binding, you're moving them onto the light, so they have freedom to move over if they haven't been able to do it for themselves for whatever reason. That's the point of that, isn't it? Is freeing them from that earthbound existence.
Yeah, but then is it ethical to go into a haunted location, especially ones that rely on paranormal investigators to go in and keep them afloat? is it ethical then to move all those spirits on?
If it's ethical, if the spirit wants to, I would say if the spirit is wanting that and communicates that, then yes, ethically you should do
But
that.
we don't know. But then technically we don't know they exist, so are we placing that on them?
But
Because it's our opinion.
But we're talking of the frame of mind that they do. So...
Yeah, so it's a grey area as well, again.
But that's where you've got your medium who is translating that message through, aren't you? I mean, if they're quite happy being earthbound and sticking around and for whatever
But then, again, if it is literally down to belief system, then you're just using their belief system to justify making that call.
I know. When you start thinking about it...
Swings and roundabouts.
But it is, isn't it? Because you can't actually get them coming through on your spirit box going, can you help me move over because I'm stuck?
Yeah.
You don't get that. You go, get out instead.
Get out, or...
Do you know what I mean?
Very sort of...
Hello, I'm stuck. Could you help me, please? And then you go, oh, yes, we'll create a doorway of light for you. And all you have to do is pass through that light. And then you sit there and you go, visualise your light. And then the spirit goes, thanks very much. See you later. Moves on.
Well,
it's not always as easy as that.
And you don't even know if they've ever actually done that.
Well, proof is in the pudding. If you don't get any activity afterwards, then they've gone.
They might just be pretending.
But why would you
they might
bother?
just be sitting there with their feet up going, what an idiot. Look what I've just made that idiot do.
And we're also
we don't know.
Assuming that all spirits aren't as obstinate as Paul Rook.
Well, we can only pray.
Exactly.
We can only pray and hope.
They might just be taking bets on who can make people do the silliest things. You don't know, yeah. Maybe they're doing their own game show. People do the silliest things,
Who knows?
and they're all in a content like the judges panel, and they're going, right, I'm going to get this person to do that. You watch.
It does seem strange, though, that if you have activity and then you do go in and do a cleansing, moving on thing, then afterwards there doesn't seem to be any problem afterwards. Or you and you do feel the energy shift. Having done it, you feel the energy shift. People who live in the property go, it feels different. Something's changed for the better. It feels lighter. It doesn't feel so heavy. But then other places, I don't think that you should ever go into any paranormal investigation with the mind of, I'm going to cleanse this place. That's not what you're there for a start.
No.
If you came across a spirit that wanted that, as an energy worker, and that's the serious vibe, I wouldn't just take it as a whim. It would have to be a long, extended form of investigation that I would do on that before I would do that kind of work. Because, like you said, it's a bigger ball game. That's even if they exist, isn't it? Like you say, if they don't exist, it is us fooling ourselves.
Well, we're just sort of like just entertaining ourselves, aren't we? We're sort of just making ourselves feel good. It is quite a selfish sort of act if you think about it. At the end of the day,
I mean, there was a case which blew up in the paranormal field a couple of years ago. Who went into 30
I think I know
East Drive.
where you're going.
Yeah, the guy went into 30 East Drive and did I have cleansed this house kind of moment. But that in itself, when you look at that case, there was nothing to say there was a poltergeist left there anyway. It could be that, when we've looked at that, it could be that we are creating almost like a Phillips experiment kind of scenario in that house when you look at it coldly. But did he cleanse it? People are still investigating it and still reporting that they're getting activity when they're in there. So clearly he didn't do a very good job. But nobody asked him to do that.
No.
And I can remember there was a right to do about it, wasn't there? But it was a bit amusing to actually look at. It would make a good study in itself, the reaction to that. Sort of like the people saying, we should have done it, we should take him to court and sue him, and the owners.
It just raises a case that is that ethical.
It does. It raises. But actually, to be fair, I think all he did was go in and smudge it. I don't think he actually did anything more than just do a smudging, cleansing smudge. I don't think he went in there and did anything more than that. In all honesty, I wasn't there. I can only go on what...
Most people like that just tend to do that anyway, don't they?
But there were cases on Most Haunted, going back to the TV show, where a medium was like, I've got to move this spirit on, and did that work. I mean, I remember watching David Wells. He actually was in a location and moved a spirit on because the spirit was, you know, asking for that. And he did that. He helped them. And quite a few times, particularly when it came to the children, Yvette, you'll be going, oh, can we do anything to help the child? You know, spirit that we reckon is here, you know? So it is a thing that, again, it's a thing in the paranormal field that but again, we go down to belief system. You believe that there's spirits. You believe that you can have life after life, and that you sometimes get earthbound rather than moving over into an ascension or wherever it is you go. And if you are stuck, surely it is ethical then to move over if it's through no fault of your own as to the reason you're stuck.
Because it does pull at our sort of very sense of being human. You know, we go to these places and stuff, and what would you do if someone came up to you and asked for some help? You would help them, wouldn't you? Simple as.
I don't know, Paul. Paul, would you help?
No, yeah. But generally, you know,
if someone physically approached me and said, I need your help, can you help me? If I can, I will. But we're talking about someone, possibly a medium, having the thought put into their minds that they need help. Just the pure fact that it's in their minds is sort of suggesting that it's only their belief system that's put it there. Yeah. So do they really need help, or do they just... Is it affected by the medium? Because the weak link in any mediumship is the medium, because it is always them that are interpreting the message. You see where I'm going? Because then medium that could interpret it wrong. The message is correct, because that's the message that's coming from spirit, and the message that gets to you could be completely misinterpreted. So the weak link in any reading is the medium.
Food for thought.
Right. Blow your minds.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. Yeah, because you've only got the medium's word for it, and are they competent enough and stuff? You know, so a medium does have a lot of responsibility. You know, and it's up to them to sort of. It's how they like to portray themselves, and how they come across. And
but there's still the possibility that they can get it wrong. Yeah, this is why I said, the weak link is the medium. So are you just going to go on their face value of their interpretation? Or do you actually need the spirit to physically manifest and go, right, I'm stuck, I need your help, sort it?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because then it comes down to trust of the person who's working medium.
Yes.
It doesn't. I don't think it doesn't bring trust into it either, because it's an interpretation. The medium has interpreted the message. Are they correct in the interpretation, or are they way off the mark? It's not about trust.
That's objectivity, and that's the same with us all. I mean, we all make mistakes, and we all make judgment calls on the spot. We have to. I mean, especially. So you
could tell me, you could give me a message for Richard very cryptically, and my interpretation of that would be completely different. So I'd tell Richard something completely different.
Like Chinese whispers, you mean?
Exactly. That
you are very reliant. You are very reliant on the medium, but then this would be up to, I'll take it, we're talking about sort of group investigations and stuff. This would be up to
any situation you're going in. If you go to a private case, you're there to help the family, and you're going to need somebody to try to speak to whatever it is that's going on there in whatever method they use, whether it's a medium or however you get your message across. And 9 times out of 10, a family will call somebody in because they're having problems. Whatever those problems are, they will call somebody in. Now, if you're going in as a researcher, it depends on how you're going. So we go back to hats, don't we? If you're going in to research that case, then you're not there to affect anything. You're there to observe.
Yes.
Not judge, to observe. You're not there to try and get a message from that spirit. You are literally there to go, that's interesting. That message got written on that board. We don't know how that happened. Like in the South Shields poltergeist, when you look at that, you look at some of the things that happened. They were literally just observing what was going on to see if it was. That was my stool, by the way, not a fart. Just pointing that out.
Yeah, go on, yeah.
But you're going in there to observe. When they did the Enfield haunting, they were there to observe. Yes, they were trying to get to the bottom of what was going on. And in the end, to try and give the family some peace, they did call in a guy from Brazil, a guy Leon Playfair, called in a guy he'd worked with in Brazil to come in and try and solve the problem, as it were. Get rid of this spirit, because something had to give. Janet could not keep going through that. The family could not keep going through that. And so he went upstairs, did whatever he did, came downstairs and went, problem solved. Guy Leon Playfair was like, okay. And then from that moment on, it seemed to stop.
Because, you sort of like, you look at the Enfield case and the girl, regardless, was sort of, by that time, well, the whole family were really suffering, weren't they? Especially Janet.
So they observed to a point, but then it got but then they got to the point where they had to do something to help the family. It was obvious something was going on. There was too much phenomena going on where that was unexplainable in regards to, we can't find a rational explanation. The kids aren't faking all of it. We knew when they were. He said that. Guy Leon Playfair stated he knew when the kids were. They weren't very subtle about it. But when you're getting marbles thrown at you and the kids are all just sat on the sofa, not moving, and these marbles aren't even in the room, and then all of a sudden marbles are being thrown at you. They're finding books that were in one of the bedrooms in next door neighbours. That's ported into into another property. Where she's talking in that voice. They had voice analysts do her voice. They say if she'd done that for as long as she did, it would have damaged her vocal cords, and it wasn't. She was definitely the focus of that, but she was not necessarily causing that. Do you know what I mean? So they ended up calling somebody in to try and solve that problem for the family. But up to a lot of that time, they were just observing and recording. And that's what, I say, we go down to hats, don't we? But then you must get to a point where you must get to a point with a case like that, where the family is obviously in need, and go, we've got to help them somehow. The only way of doing that is by calling in somebody that you trust, that you maybe have worked with before or come across before, and you go, really need your help. Can you come in and do what you can do? That had mediums in before that hadn't been able to solve the problem, as it were. But then the guy he'd known from Brazil came in and cleared it very easily. So when you think about it ethically, I can see both sides of your argument on this one. I can see every argument. I can understand exactly what Paul's saying. But we don't come across things like the Enfield haunting very often.
No,
with the Enfield haunting and that particular private case, you do the research, you come up with your own conclusions, and you've got the facts to back it up. If a medium went in there and said, John's sitting in the corner, he wants to be moved on because that's what he's telling me. You can't take that as a fact. No. Because it is their interpretation of whether they actually speak to you or whether they put messages in your mind by picture form or whatever happens. It's you can't take that as fact. So you need to do your research first.
Yeah.
I think once you've got all that, you can quite safely say, right, okay, well, I need someone then that can actually pass spirit over and actually know what they're doing. Then you can say, right, these are the facts. This is what's happening to this family. They're absolutely pooping themselves because they've got spirit in there. The spirit obviously don't want to be moved from what we've got evidence-wise. Can you force it out? Can you go, and then obviously you'll get your medium because they're not giving a message. They're not doing a reading. They're getting rid of the spirit. That again, is something completely different.
But I think the Enfield case, and this is what a lot of people can probably sort of take from it, it's a classic case of building a case, isn't it? You know, you build your case, you investigate, you build, you observe, you reach the conclusions, you know what and wherever they point, and then a good sort of investigator, if will, sort of say, right, this is the possible solution to it. And a good investigator should have good contacts around them. So it is a bit of a group effort at the end of the day. So perhaps putting it all down to the medium. No, I mean the person that chooses the medium. You know, they're responsible. So there's a lot of sort of little sort of branch ways off that. So there's a lot of people involved into coming to one conclusion, but they've got to be sort of trustworthy and competent people.
It's a quagmire of ethics, isn't it, really, when you think about it? But if you are just a little paranormal team going out, so we've talked about hats before on Types of Haunting show, you've got to be very, very aware of what hat you're wearing. Now, we've come across the box thing, really. Let's have a look at, we go back to the box thing. Personally, I don't kind of believe it. I don't believe that you could house a spirit inside a box or a glass case. If it wants to come out, it's going to.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't particularly believe they do.
We put a lot of attributes down to sort of like alleged spirits or spirits. You know, they can pass through walls and everything. I can't really see a box sort of being much of an object.
I think you're right in regards to saying it's that physical barrier which creates that psychological.
Yeah,
faith.
It's a psychological thing. It's a psychological. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think that's that.
But I do think as well, going back to like ancient civilizations and things like that, you've got a lot of ancient symbols and their meanings and stuff, and there is a lot of power in. I mean, symbols are basically the ancient version of words, aren't they?
Yeah.
And there is a lot of power in words.
Yes.
So I think, there could be a lot of power in a symbol. So if you had a box with maybe like a pentagram, for example, etched on every side, that symbol gives each side a barrier.
But it's only to the observer.
No, but it's intention. Like you could write down, the word, for example, or the symbol, but unless you put your intention on that symbol, it holds no power.
Yeah, so that's right. But so it's still giving that box a special power of keeping that spirit contained.
I can see where you're going. If I was sort of doing some DIY around my house and I sort of come across a cavity in my flat wall and found a box with a pentagram on it, in a way that only becomes active as soon as I see that pentagram, because it's me. Because that will conjure up all sorts of images for me. I mean, before that, and when it was hidden away and nothing, and wasn't even known about, it was just a box with some writing on it. Do you understand what I'm saying? But as soon as someone gazes on it, that's when it sort of kicks in. This is where it can possibly kick in.
I think, going into finding things in cavities, there's the Travelling Museum of the Occult in America, Greg and Dana Newkirk, got contacted by a guy who said they found this, and it's an idol. It's a wooden carving idol. They'd found that in a cavity in their house and removed it from the cavity, thinking, what's that doing there? It's a bit bad. And then started having bad dreams, like bad dreams. Like he was, it was lucidly real dreams of stabbing his wife to death and, all sorts of weird stuff. So anyway, I heard about the Travelling Museum of the Occult and said, I've got this. Do you want it? Because I really don't want it. And they travelled and got it. And they had a bit of an issue when they were travelling with it. The car broke down, blah, 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 blah. They've called it Billy the Idol. Fascinating artefact in its own right. Go and check it out. It's on, you'll be able to find the story online of Billy the Idol. And
I bet Billy Idol's well chuffed with that.
I know, I did laugh when I found out what they'd named it was Billy the Idol. And now they have, he's got a place of reverence, he's worshipped. They've done all sorts of, things with him. And they treat him like he's a real little entity in his own right. And they don't have any problems with him. He doesn't travel well, put it this way. And they certainly don't take him on planes and stuff because they're not quite sure they don't really want to risk it.
Also, if it makes their van break down, you don't really want to.
Not on an aeroplane.
No, you don't want your airplane going up the spout there.
Not really. And people have had very strong reactions when they've been working or just coming into contact with him, as in when they've had him on the Travelling Museum of the Occult is what it says on the tin. They travel with these objects. And when they've taken him out on the road before now, people have had very strong reactions to this carved wooden idol. So they've stopped taking him out because of the reaction people have had, and it's been very extreme. Like, people have been ill, after they were fine, saw Billy, all of a sudden they're passing out and having problems. Do you know what I mean? So does it hold an energy? If you came across an Akondi doll, you don't know anything about it, no history on it whatsoever, you don't even know what an Akondi doll is, which is basically a wooden idol with nails driven through it. A lot of times they were used as, you would tie offerings and stuff onto the nails, hence why the nails are there, that sort of thing. It's a idol of worship, right? It's very specific type of, usually comes from the Middle East, and even Portugal we found out on that one. And which is, across the Babylonian roots. And so far, nothing bad has happened to anybody who's worked with an idol in that way. But we don't know. Another example is, we're going into, if you have things like that happening with these kind of artifacts, there is nothing to say that a box couldn't have the same effect.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree, yeah.
So we dismiss a Dybbuk box purely and simply because it's been called a Dybbuk box, and we know the history of that, and we know where they've come from, and we know the mythology that's supposed to... It's a bit like the Slender Man mythology, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yet people believe in that and still see the Slender Man to today.
Well,
you know
the Dybbuk box,
but we can,
has come from the creepypasta sort of side, isn't it? And it's sort of like developed, as you say, into
a
its
life
own...
of its own. You know what I mean? Dybbuk boxes have done the same thing because someone was trying to sell this crappy old box, basically, on eBay. So when you think about it, it's... When you look at these old idols that can seem to have an effect on people, you can't then dismiss a box may well have been imbued with the same kind of thing. Playing devil's advocate. Gone round in circle on that one.
Yeah, golly, blindsided us there.
There's plenty of cases of poppets and things like that where they've been moved out of their locality and then have caused major problems. When they've been put back, all of a sudden it stops. It's absolutely fine. Or it's been treated with the reverence it deserves, and all of a sudden things turn out to be all right. There's plenty of references across the history of things that, So there you go. Things can hold energy. Is that proof, or is that just the belief system of, it looks a bit weird, trigger something in my psychology, all of a sudden weird stuff's happening? I don't know.
Oh dear, my brain's starting to hurt now. Where are we?
Side of the week, is it? Yeah. It's an interesting subject.
It is an interesting subject. I mean, you could, oh dear.
I know.
Just where we've gone,
I know.
We've gone into the box, we've gone out the box,
we've gone around the box, we've even thought outside the box.
And all down to a box.
And it's all down to a box. And it all started with us finding out about a box that had a prophecy allegedly inside. And again, controversy surrounds that. Was it real box? Is it been opened? Hasn't it been opened? Did it even exist? I mean, plenty of people say it did exist. There were several boxes. You know, when we started looking into the box thing, it opens up so many different avenues and concepts in people's minds of, you know, just, as I say, just look at the popularity of a television program of what's in the box. We see many psychic experiments put out across the socials by various mediums. What's inside the box? You know, and even down to that leads into what card can you pick out of a deck of Zener cards? Predict that.
Yeah.
To test psi-ability.
Even I done my experiment.
Absolutely fascinating.
Even I done an online experiment with what's in the box.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it certainly got a lot of attention. You know, you put things like that up on social media, you know, what are you feeling from this? You know, and people do sort of follow, you know, do follow along with it. And those sort of posts do get a lot of reaction. It's certainly something people find fascinating about it.
And people find boxes fascinating. You could buy mystery boxes on eBay all over the place, not necessarily paranormal, all sorts of things you can buy mystery boxes for. And it is potluck, and you can spend anything from $10 up to $500 on a mystery box. And people do it. People buy it. You know, it's that fascination. What's in the box?
Yeah.
You could put a load of toot inside a box, shove it on eBay.
Yeah. That's an idea. Just looking around my flat at the moment. Yeah.
That's one way of clearing your tack, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sure is.
And, you know, there were even macabre boxes. I mean, when we was looking, I've not got access to the dark web. I just like to put that out there. But you can get some really scary mystery boxes that you kind of... I've seen openings of these, obviously, on YouTube, where they've bought a box on the dark web and then it's like weird stuff. Really strange, weird stuff inside. And you think, oh, my God, this is like crime. This is evidence for a crime, surely. Do you know what I mean? Should it even be out there? But there is that fascination with something inside something that's unknown, and you have to get inside to find out what it is. Human curiosity.
I think it is just curiosity in the unknown, because that's why people love the paranormal, because it's unknown and people always want to find out more.
They always do.
Yeah.
And on that note, we've actually come to the end of the show, guys.
Wow, that was quick.
I love that one.
If you want to listen to any of our shows, don't forget they're all available on Podbean, or you can go over onto our YouTube channel, Paranormal Concept. You can find us on Facebook, on Paranormal Concept, or Twitter, or Instagram. We're all over the socials. If you want to get in contact with us, do not hesitate. We are welcoming anybody to get in contact with us, even if it's just to tell us we don't agree. We don't mind any of that. We don't mind any of that. Now, if you want to read any of our blogs, which we do, right? We release them on a regular basis. You can go over to paranormalconcept.com and you will find out a little bit more about us presenters, find links to all of our shows, and read all of our blogs. On that note, it's time to say goodbye, guys.
Goodbye, guys.
Goodbye, guys.
Goodbye.